5 ways to grow a business and why it matters for exits and capital. Today's video, we want to walk through 5 strategies of growing a business, have a bonus one at the end, and in addition to that, explain a little bit more in depth why it matters if ultimately you're going to sell a business, whether in the near term or longer term, or if you're seeking capital. First way to grow a business is to grow the depth of the existing customer base. Simply stated, more. Who are you selling things to? What are the inputs? And how do you do more of that? If there's X amount of calls a week, if there's X amount of emails, X amount of meetings, how do you just do more? Find the exact same audience that you're reaching out to, but how do you just iterate more, have more conversations, have more discussions? Somewhat the simplest way, but it can also be much more the effective. In business, sometimes the style points don't matter. It doesn't have to be complex, it just has to be effective. Next is the breadth of the customer base, and first being the same. And so it sounds similar, but instead of targeting more iterations and inputs of the same audience, in this case, we want to say, how do we expand that horizontally? So if you are marketing to certain clients that do a certain thing in a particular country, how do you do it to people in other countries? How do you do it to other people in different parts of the same country? But the same avatar, just perhaps a different location, a slightly different demographic, geography, whatever it may be, but the breadth of the client or customer base of the same. Now, the third strategy is the breadth of the customer base, what we call adjacent. And so the slight nuance there being, how do you find avatars, profiles, potential prospective clients or customers that are just about the same, but it's slightly different? For instance, if you're selling a service to engineering firms, how applicable is the same service to architectural firms? If you're selling a service to hospitals, how applicable could it be to urgent cares? A slight difference in audience, very much an adjacency or a natural expansion. This bleeds into number 4 is a product enhancement. Again, not a new product, not a different product, but a slight enhancement. If you have a software company that is dashboard software for building products distribution companies, what services does your software tackle and what other problems do your customers face that can be solved? At its core, many services, products, offerings are mitigation of pain points for the end customer or the end client. You are solving a pain of theirs in some shape, form, or fashion. Now, to think of what other pains exist in the same process that your product, service, or offering could solve, that is a natural area of growth. And so determining what that is and solving that pain point, enhancing the product, service, or offering to address another pain point, to solve another problem for the end client, is a sure shot way to grow a business. Number 5, affiliate relationships. So in your business, if you're trying to grow a business, you have sales or origination, execution of doing the thing, and operations, making sure that the machine of your business works. And when you think of sales or originating or sourcing, business development, you tend to look at who are the people doing that activity. Okay, we have X inside salespeople, X outside salespeople, some word of mouth, some advertising, but what other ways can business come in? Because more business coming in equals growth. And one way of doing this that is often overlooked are affiliate arrangements. And what we mean by this is who else is selling products to your same ideal customer base. So if you're a wholesale dry cleaning business, who else deals with the same customer base? And so maybe you go to linen and uniform companies, maybe you go to larger tailoring companies and say, if you send business our way, bring us clients, we will give you X% of the money that comes in. Right? Give people a reason to want to sell your product, service, or offering. Obviously, existing relationships that can already attest to the quality of what you do will be helpful, but in any situation, if someone is asked, who should I do X with, and they have someone in mind, and there's some financial incentive of a sort to shift, to direct that person in your way and say, you should try this company, they're wonderful people, and they do a great job, it will be ultimately more people selling your product, service, or offering. And these have to be done legitimately. You actually have to be good at what you do so that the person is incentivized properly to advocate for you, but structuring these relationships beyond just purely like, hey, you know what we do, send someone our way if you'd like to, but actually going in and saying, look, for every person that you send, if you run chiropractic businesses and you go to orthopedic surgeons, if you run a physical therapy business and you go to gyms or rehab centers, the point being is, if you think of the funnel of a client or a customer in all of the services that they need in life, whatever service or offering you provide, find someone who's in that same flow of services and say, if the next step down the waterfall, you suggest the person come our way, then we'll make it worth your while to do so. And I assure you, there will be more momentum in that way. So that's the idea about affiliates. So to summarize 5 ways of growing a business, the depth of the existing customer base, more. The breadth of the same customer base, the breadth of adjacent customer bases, enhancements of the product, and affiliate arrangements. Now, one bonus here is something that we did not say. We did not say new. We did not say different. And that was intentionally done so. In business, you always want to do more, you want to do better, you want to do slightly broader, but new and different is a new business. And so it's not to say you can't do it, but it's not a growth of an existing business necessarily. If it's a purely new product, if it's a purely new service, it is effectively a new business. And so that can be under the same umbrella as to what you do. But again, there's somewhat of a continuum here that if on one end of the spectrum you're just doing exactly more of exactly what you do, on the other end of the spectrum you're doing something completely different for a completely different audience, then we like to say that natural adjacencies, things that touch, if you will, are growing of the business. Where there is a disconnect or a entirely new thing, it's more of a new business. And the same efforts that are taken to get a business from 0 to 100 are going to be necessary. When you're growing a business, what you really want to do is utilize the areas where you already have momentum, where we already have a full head of steam, and those adjacencies can utilize that level of momentum to gain market share in what they do. And so slowly, if the web keeps growing and growing and growing, ultimately you could be doing those what initially appeared to be very different things. However, if it's done incrementally in that way, you can utilize the existing momentum and really roll the snowball. And so finally, why does this all matter for business exits and capital? If you said, well, I'm going to sell my business anyways, who cares? Well, I already have the need for capital, so why do all these other things matter? And the answer is the narrative. It's the direction, it's the trajectory and momentum of the business. Part of valuing a business from an acquirer's perspective is science, and what is the multiple, and what are the margins, and what are the numbers. And part of it has a bit of art to it, in the sense that they do quantify and qualify what is the momentum of the business, what are the future opportunities, what are the catalysts for growth. So to the extent that you have these things isolated, that you have a blueprint of sorts, it's much more defensible when you are negotiating for higher purchase prices. And so with all the clients that we work with, when we are negotiating the terms for the value, the structure, the transition, the stakeholders of a deal, we want to emphasize how the business has been growing, how the business can be grown, what steps have been taken, and what paths are elucidated or delineated, demarcated, highlighted, drawn. Show the treasure map in a business, and it makes it a lot easier for the other side to say, okay, I understand where this is going and what opportunities there are. Very similar from a capital perspective. If someone's providing capital, particularly if it's more equity oriented or even debt oriented, doesn't matter necessarily. If somebody is looking to the future of a business, everybody wants to know what's there, what's good that's happening now, but what opportunity is in the future. And the more it is a defined path, the more there are definable growth opportunities and some trajectory, momentum, or traction towards accomplishing those, the more confidence you're going to instill. So that's a thought for today. Hope the week's getting off to a good start for everyone. Keep pushing forward. God bless. See you next time.